Hey everyone, Typical Hunks Adventure here, and heading out to get my son. I'll say I think the meeting went pretty well in terms of me doing a demo for the proof of concept for the visual testing. I was a little bit worried about it because again, it's not really something you can show. You just have to kind of explain like how it does the computing or the math to figure out things. Now there are concepts I can explain, like setting two images to grayscale and resizing them and applying a blur to make it more of like a singularity or like a structure of something rather than an image. But overall, I think I did a pretty good job presenting it. That's one thing that I feel like I'm decent with is talking with people and trying to run meetings and stuff like that. Probably one of the only things I really enjoyed in terms of when I used to be in management, just trying to keep things moving along or fill in, even if it's like a meeting and things are kind of dead, just trying to hold conversation so it's not as awkward in a sense. One funny thing, I don't know if it's funny, it was kind of like annoying or it's just like really, but I was explaining how we take an image that I've stored and then compare it to an image that it takes in a screenshot, and I was just like, it's going to be stored in this location, and I also have debugging on so we can actually see where it's going to store that in a location. And then right after I said that, someone was like, so where's the file being stored? How do we know and check that? And then someone else came off of mute and was like, I was wondering the same thing. And it's just like, really? I'm literally explaining this right now and just said that I even have steps to the debug in, and it'll show it in just a second. So it's always interesting when people don't pay attention to things like that, but then come off of mute to have a question and think they're contributing. And that's fine. I understand. I'd rather them ask than not, and them personally wondering. But yeah, it's literally just explaining the point as we were going. But yeah, I'm glad it went well, and I'm glad that, there's understanding that it's a proof of concept. I'm not going to have everything, I'm not going to have all the answers. I shouldn't stress over that, and it's still being built out, and, it's kind of my contribution to this piece. Now, I still will work on it, but others can look at it and improve on it. They can have suggestions on it, or maybe they are inspired to try and do something that I couldn't with it, and that's totally okay as well. I am very happy with how the meeting went and how things were perceived with it and what I could explain and kind of show with it to the best of my ability. And then outside of that, I was also able to help a coworker with some stuff. So I'm not super familiar or great with using Postman for doing REST requests and posts and hitting APIs and all that. Like, that is one piece that I kind of lack in my skill set and know. But I am able to get around with it and figure out things, and I'm fortunate that I'm able to do that. And sometimes it's better if you learn things on your own. I feel like, and we had talked about that today with some code where one of the manual guys is trying to learn automation, and while we can explain things, sometimes it's better when you solve complex issues on your own. Now, of course, don't spend days and weeks unless that's something you have time for and it's not something critical. But yeah, if someone's always holding your hand or explaining things for you, you're never going to really truly learn it until you need to. Now, they could explain it and have you do the thing instead of you just watching them, but I feel like until you really get in and know the process and what something is trying to do, it's never going to fully click. That's something I learned even when I was in one of my first jobs out of tech school with being a network administrator and just trying to figure out some of the coding, not necessarily just coding, but also figuring out like new programs and just issues with hardware and even software and stuff on the network, and just really debugging and troubleshooting things. It's a great way of learning and gaining experience, and the same thing can be said of coding and new technologies. So that was something with the Postman that I've been trying to do a bit better about, and for some reason it seems like one of our senior engineers, she doesn't have access to certain things or couldn't find certain info, and she was hoping I was able to. And it kind of worked out well that when she was on parental leave, I kind of learned a bit more about this thing that we call a credential manager, and it kind of just stores where we have our users and passwords and things like that. And you can use it to look them up. You can also use it to check them out, check them in, update them, add, remove, etc. Now you can do that in our application, but that's only within the application. That's not updating this actual cred manager thing that kind of controls and stores that info as well. So kind of weird how they're like that, but yeah, so the users were created in our application by someone else, but they didn't show up in this credential manager. Therefore, they cannot be used by our automation or code to be checked out because it doesn't know they exist. And we didn't know what their passwords were because, again, nothing was stored. So I was able to kind of reverse engineer and get the environment and figure out where I needed to point to so that I could create these same kind of requests for our live environment, not a test environment. And I was able to get the users added to our cred manager. And then I realized it still wasn't working. And then there's another tool that I have that we don't even know how I got it, or other engineers don't know how we got it either. But one of the guys who's on parental leave, it was something he had created, and I somehow got access to it. But yeah, my coworker who was on parental leave during this time when I was first learning how to code, she did not have this tool. So grateful that I do, because I'm able to help there and feel a bit more, useful and helpful in that sense. And I was able to get her set up in that scenario with not only adding these users, but then being able to reset the information for them so that they then would show up and be able to be logged into and used in our automated suite. So that was also a nice little mini win, kind of boost my morale and confidence in being able to help people. Because at the end of the day, that's one of the things I like. I like being able to help people and not feel, as stuck on things. Now, of course, you're always going to run into the new scenarios and things that you're trying to figure out. But in that sense, I was, very happy to help out. So, and with that said, even the visual regression stuff that I'm learning after doing that demo, had a couple of people ask if I would be able to get that pushed out so they could take a look at it. I was a bit hesitant at first because, it's still kind of its testing phase. I'm trying to figure out things. But then I realized, if I don't get it out there, other people can't take a look at it and, try and improve on it or bring up, suggestions or help me with it as well. So try and clean it up and make it more generic, because the idea is you want it to just be a utility that does what it's supposed to do. The way I have it kind of built right now is more for testing, so I've got like steps in there for things it's going to do, and then it does the utility, then it goes back to running steps for a test, and then it does things with the utility. And you really don't want that. You want your code to be clean, so it wants to be its own Java class that's just going to be what functions can this utility do for the visual regression testing. And then in your actual tests, you can then, call that method and say, okay, I've done these steps for finding an image, and now I'm going to call the visual regression testing method that, captures that image and store it. And then it goes back to doing your test. So, yeah, hoping to have that out this afternoon. So I think that'll be good. And, overall, a decent Friday, I would say. And I was also looking into trying to figure out something in my backyard. Like I said, I'm not a lawn guy. I don't know why I'm always trying to find stuff to do, because I have plenty. But our backyard, I've aerated it, which I've never done before, so that was something new for me to try. But I feel like the ground is just so compacted still in certain areas. And last night when I was running the sprinklers, it just gets so flooded because it doesn't seem to soak in very well. I've got an alarm going off. Pretty sure those don't show up, or it's not ruining the video, but just to get it off the screen, I'm going to tap it. But yeah, it seems to kind of flood the yard still, so I can tell that the ground is still compacted in some sense. I'm not really sure what to do about it. I could aerate in some more spots. Again, I don't know if it's really helping, but one of the things I've noticed as well is that not only is the ground a bit compact in some areas, but grass kind of struggles to get out. It seems a bit patchy in certain spots, and then other areas it's still very lush. And I'm wondering if like a grass seed mix might help. Again, I've never planted or used grass seed, and so that'll be something new I'll need to figure out. And I don't know what kind of grass I have either. I thought it for sure was not Kentucky bluegrass, and there's some other kind of grass that apparently is not heavily used, but it's commonly used in Utah, and I guess Kentucky bluegrass is also one of them, and then another kind of Kentucky grass. But yeah, I'm not really sure which one, but then I found that there's like a Scott's Turf Builder, and they actually do like a mixture, so there's actually a Kentucky slash, I don't remember what the other one is that I looked into, but it's kind of a mixture of both of those, so apparently that's okay, and it's healthy and stuff, and can help make the grass a bit more dense. So I may look into trying something like that. It's still spring before it quite warms up, and try and get that down. And yeah, it's also got me thinking about the front yard, and we wanted to clear that side lot because there's so much rock, and we want to put mulch down there and do a garden and all of that. But the front yard, sure, it's very weedy in certain spots, and we were planning on ripping it all up and just putting a rock there. But looking at it, it's just, I would say maybe 40% of it is probably weed now. And I just wonder if maybe if I de-weed and try using this kind of, like lawn mixture, if that would help bring the grass back. Of course, that doesn't solve the problem with the rock and what we want to do with the rock. But I don't know, thinking about the cost of it, and it's about $3,000. It just seems like a lot of money to spend on something so silly right now. It's nice that I have the money for something like that, but is that really where I should be investing it right now? So I don't know. I'll have to talk to my wife about it. I could try and work on it on my own and do it if we want to, or maybe I try and get the front lawn revitalized and fine again. I'm not sure. And then I don't know what to do with that rock. I just kind of push it up a fence line and get it out of the way, and get the mulch down, and then just slowly start putting the rock in places or getting rid of it. I don't want to get rid of the rock, but maybe I can do some kind of decorative edging where I kind of use it in certain spots along the house, and still use the mulch where we want it, so it's easier on the feet in some ways. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. I'll have to figure it out sooner than later, because I don't know if the landscapers bought the material yet for it, but they're still a bit out trying to figure out their schedule, so we'll kind of see how that goes. But there's always something going on, and I suppose that's life. But sorry for the longer video and rant. I know it's just kind of a video where I'm just chatting about things, and sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's not, and that's also life. Sometimes things are exciting, sometimes not so much, but at the end of the day, there's always something going on, and if there isn't, then you can always make something for it, whether you're wanting to learn something new, like a new technology, or just learn more about something. There's a couple of things that I've been wanting to look more into. I guess I could talk about for a moment. Well, I will take a sip of my drink first. One of the things that I recently wanted to look into is Amazon's KDP program, and it kind of deals with putting out books. And now you don't have to print the books or anything like that. You kind of just publish them, and Amazon handles the rest. So they'll do the printing and the shipping and everything like that. And I was more interested in doing like children's books, because that's kind of what I review, and I think it would be cool to have some for my kids. It could cover various things. It would be cool to have some for handling certain situations, or helping kids, maybe helping them with potty training and stuff like that. There's a lot of simple books out there, and a lot of them aren't super in-depth, and that's usually how children's books are. And they wouldn't have to be priced high. I think if you were to price a book at $8 on Amazon as a paperback, after paying the printing fees and everything else and Amazon's portion, you would make about $2 and some change per book. And that's some side income right there that it's definitely helpful. And it turns into be passive, and it just exists on the site, and anytime people buy it, then you're earning money in that sense. But then you run into things as well. I would have to learn another skill. Now, while I am artistic, I've never gone about illustrating, a children's book, for example, and keeping it consistent with the same characters, unless it's for different scenarios. Then I guess you could have different, children for things. But, it turns into biting off more than I can chew at the moment, because it's not just, publishing a book at that sense. At that point, it's, okay, I have to illustrate it as well and make sure that looks good, on top of learning other new skills with formatting and, all of that. And it kind of came about because I saw a video where someone was going over it and, what they make and having it set up. And essentially they just make, various books. They don't put in that kind of effort with making it a children's book. It's more so just, these are generic books. They could be dream journals. They could be recipe books, planners, etc. So essentially all they're doing is creating the cover and the back of the book, and then they are using a format or like some kind of like template for something, like a planner template, and then they just copy and paste that for 100 pages. So there's 100 pages in the book that you can use for planning and writing, etc. And these books are, going to be fairly cheap because they're fairly straightforward and simple. And then they'll just exist on Amazon. And, the way they kind of get ahead is having proper SEO and titles and descriptions and stuff like that with certain keywords that are going to make them stand out higher in the search. And then, of course, just having a nice flashy book cover that might appeal to someone over another book cover. Sometimes that's what it just comes down to, especially if the contents are the same. And that seems pretty easy and straightforward. And she's like, yeah, anyone can go do that. I can do that right now. But it doesn't guarantee my book will sell. It'll probably come down to creativity at that point, and having one that, is going to stand out over someone else's, or maybe I have to use better keywords that are going to allow mine to stand out over the other ones as well. So, but it is something that I was looking into, just to try and expand and have, more skill sets and things that I am learning, as well as ways to kind of generate some side income outside of just doing the Amazon on-site commissions. But yeah, that would be something that I'd like to do. But again, I would like to try and do it for children's illustrations. I will say one thing with the diaries and planners and recipe books and stuff like that. The videos that I've watched so far, a lot of them use this other site. I think it might be called like BookBolt or something like that. They've got tons of templates on there and like keyword ideas, and they show you like the niches and things where there might not be as much product that you could look into. Maybe it's a crossword book on, animals or, something along those lines. That could be, cool for like a kid that likes crossword puzzles and, maybe dinosaurs, and there isn't a book for that. So you could create that sort of book and have there, but it's not a free service. I think it's $10 a month. So if I was going to do that, I would have to, spend a good amount of time researching and knowing what I'm going to do, and then just start pumping out a ton of, books for certain things that I think would, net me some profit, and then cancel my monthly subscription and kind of just sit and see if, I made my money back. And then if I did, I could look into, doing more of that, or like a yearly subscription or something like that. But I'm not really a fan of just making, pointless books. I shouldn't say pointless, but it's just, they have the templates, they exist. Everyone's probably got the same ones out there on Amazon already. The only thing that's going to be unique is if you make your own book cover. But even then, they have got templates and stuff like that for covers. So it makes it a bit harder, unless you do your own imagery. Then you'll definitely stand out in that sense. But yeah, I think kids' books would be fun, especially with just how many I read my son and just realizing how simple they are. Sometimes they're not cheap either. So, like even if I could make, 50 cents a book, maybe I'd list mine for $5 just to make it more accessible for people, because it's not always about just the profit. For me, it's more about learning and the experience and trying something new. And then sure, if I make a little bit on the way, then that's, that's an added benefit. And even speaking on that, one of the accounts I followed, this mom who has a daughter with cystic fibrosis, she was mentioning how she was making money from Meta with Instagram Reels, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And weeks ago, I got an alert from Instagram for that, and it kind of mentioned like, oh, you can be eligible to earn money on Reels and posting content. And then it kind of explained how it's like, oh yeah, you can do paid promotions where a company sends you something and you mention it's an ad. You can do affiliate marketing, which I kind of just do through Amazon. I don't post on my Instagram for that. I'm not gonna plug that kind of stuff there because I just post Pokemon stuff. I don't want to post about other items that are irrelevant to some degree. And then the other option was like, oh, you can also just get paid through Meta if you are a bigger account with hundreds of thousands of followers. And it's just like, okay, well, that doesn't apply to me, obviously. So I kind of just stopped looking because at that point, it's just like, yeah, it's not for me. But then today, I got another alert, and it mentioned, you're eligible to collaborate with brands, and it listed a bunch of brands that I could select and say, oh, I'm interested in these, areas, but I didn't choose any because nothing really stood out to me. But I'm still in the program now, so that was kind of cool getting in. So that way now my account's kind of out there. So if someone was like, oh, I like the content this guy makes, I'm going to reach out to him about, something along those lines. And I think that would be neat. That would be something different that I haven't done before. I've had other accounts reach out in the past, but I don't know if they're legit or not. Probably not, because it's the same copy-paste thing where I had one yesterday. It's like, oh, we love the content that you make, and you're beautiful, and we would like you to promote our makeup or something along those lines. And it was more directed toward Amazon, where they wanted me to make a video and put a review there. And I thought that was odd, because it's like, for one, I don't really show myself very much on my Instagram, especially in videos. And two, you're reaching out to me on Instagram, and this is about getting stuff up on Amazon. And I had another one for the same thing with some other kind of product. And I don't know, maybe I mentioned my Instagram on my Amazon storefront. I don't think so, because it'd be kind of odd. So I don't know, just thought it was kind of odd. Maybe they saw I had a link on my Instagram, so they knew I was kind of doing stuff over there. Not sure, but either way, it just seemed a bit sus, so I kind of passed on those. But one day something will happen. It would be nice. I do have a Voltex affiliate code, so I've had a couple of friends and followers on Instagram buy binders through my code. And that earns me some money as well, so that's always cool. I think I've gotten cashed out twice on that for like 25 euros. So that's pretty neat, getting that. I'm helping others, and I use my code as well whenever I need binders for cards. And it would just be cool to see some more card companies or accessory places reach out. Maybe it's cases for slabs or other binders, card holders, card sleeves. Really anything. I think that would be kind of cool, just to kind of build, my brand in that sense and be able to help people save with discounts on products too. So I don't know if I'll ever get big enough to have like meal plan places reach out, especially on like YouTube, but one can dream. But for now, I guess that'll do it for this video. So thanks for sticking along. I noticed I gained 3 subscribers overnight. I'm not sure why, what video triggered that, but I deeply appreciate everyone who follows and also watches these videos. So as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.